Hey guys, it's Sarah Ulmer and Lange with Y'all Politics. We want to talk a little bit through what happened in the runoff last night and kind of what we're looking towards before November in this Senate and congressional race. All right, so Alan, you've done a pretty thorough analysis of what this runoff looked like.
Yep.
Talk to me a little bit about the U.S. Senate race and kind of this flip-flop, seeing a win from David Berria, who had lost to Howard Sherman in the primary originally.
Sure. So last night, I think Berria really kind of overperformed. I think he had probably what I would have considered kind of a lackluster turnout in the primary. It was a six-way primary. There were a lot of candidates in that first primary, and so you had some different dynamics where Howard Sherman was leading the race, and Berria was a pretty close second, and Amiria Scott was a pretty close third. And the question was going to be whether Howard Sherman could take the support that he got from Amiria Scott in the endorsement and somehow band that together and get his folks back together to show up for a runoff. And clearly that didn't happen. You look at the vote totals from the first race. David Berria got about 26,000 votes in the primary, and that shot up to about 43,000 votes in the runoff. And there were actually a few more votes in the end analysis than I thought there would be. There were some predictions out there saying that turnout would be as low as maybe 50,000 votes in the Democratic runoff, and that turned out not to be the case. And I attribute a good bit of that to Benny Thompson getting engaged in this race on behalf of David Berria. I think the most interesting thing is that demographically, and you kind of look at the map, that this was really kind of a vote between kind of the Democratic haves and the Democratic have-nots. If you look at the way that the map showed out, Sherman did better in rural, less affluent areas, and he still won 40 counties, or just under 40 counties, which is a lot in a deal like this. But he won in counties where there weren't many votes. Berria held serve where you thought he would. On the coast, in Jackson, the population centers, Tupelo, DeSoto County, those are the places that he did well, and he was able to run up the score, even though the map looked pretty evenly colored. They won roughly about the same number of counties, but Berria won counties where he needed to. A couple things that we tweeted last night during the campaign. We started looking at counties that came in. Warren County was over in Vicksburg was a county that Berria had flipped. Lowndes County was a county that voted on June the 5th, voted 1,538 votes for Sherman. Sherman still won last night, but there were only a total of 900 votes. So that tells you that that the interest level for Sherman voters was down, that they really didn't need to go to, or they didn't really go back to the polls the way that Sherman needed them to. And again, I attribute a lot of that to kind of the establishment kind of stiffening their back and Benny Thompson getting engaged. And I think that helped not so much with the Democrat have-nots. Sherman still won counties in the Delta, but he won but where Berria did do well is kind of in organized places where there were more votes. And one more example I'll give you, in Hinds County, if you looked at the box-by-box breakdown in Hinds County for the Democratic primary, the more affluent areas of Hinds County overlap with the 3rd Congressional District. So if you look at the Democratic boxes that also voted in the 3rd Congressional District, those were the boxes in Hinds County where Berria really ran up the score. In the less affluent areas of Hinds County, where there was no 3rd Congressional District runoff, the vote totals between Sherman and Berria were much, much closer. Sherman won a few boxes, not many, but typically they were 55-45 boxes, nothing more than 60-40. But in areas where there was 3rd Congressional District overlap, the Democratic nominee now, David Berria, ran the score up in those boxes 70-30, 80-20. There was a big disparity. So I think that's kind of what you saw there.
So moving forward with Beria on the ticket, what does that look like for Democrats in Mississippi before this November election?
Yeah, look, there's still obviously some division. I think that Beria's job is going to be to kind of band his folks together. The Republican people that I talked to last night seemed kind of upbeat that Beria won the race, primarily because he was the option with the fewest unknowns. Sherman really was an unknown. He was unknown, I think, largely to Mississippi Democrats, but he was also unknown to Mississippi Republicans. He spent over $850,000 in his race, and had he won and decided that he was willing and able to raise and spend that much more money, that's just a big wild card. Beria is going to kind of run, I think, what you see is what you get sort of campaign. I think there's going to be clearly a much more predictable, basic campaign running on talking points. He's, I think, telegraphed most of what his punches will be against Wicker. It's a huge hill to climb. It would have been a huge hill to climb for either one of them, but I think for Beria it would be a huge hill to climb because I don't think the cavalry is going to be riding over the hill with a bunch of money. I don't think the Democratic Senatorial Committee is going to write big checks. I don't think third parties are going to write big checks, absent just some tectonic sea change of political events that don't have anything to do with Mississippi, absent just a collapse. Democrats nationally will be thinking about whether or not they're going to put bets on trying to take back the Senate or whether they're going to try to take back the House, and they're going to have to make some choices in D.C. about where resources go. And again, Beria is a much more predictable result, I think, for Wicker. Still be an interesting race, and I think Beria will work really hard. I think he showed he clearly outworked Sherman this week. But again, last night I think there are some lingering feelings. A couple reports that I had read said that Sherman was a little bit shell-shocked and he sounded a little bit bitter. When given the opportunity to kind of be magnanimous and be supportive of the nominee, he pulled back a little bit from that. He didn't just say, well, hey, I'm fully supportive of the nominee. He didn't say that. He may well, but certainly last night, I think there was a little shock on his part and a little bitterness. So.
Well, and that is a difference that we've seen in these two races a little bit. You have two opponents who kind of didn't hold back on giving their opinions on the other candidate, whereas moving towards the 3rd congressional race, you have two opponents who've been very respectful and almost uplifting and speaking about each other and the character of their opponent. So let's move forward to the 3rd congressional race. A little bit less of a dramatic race, I think, with Michael Guest taking the win just as he did in the primary. Talk to me a little bit about what those numbers looked like and kind of how moving forward into November will look.
Yeah, no surprises really. I think Whit Hughes has had a good history in party politics and in business and even in government service. When he worked for MDA, well respected. He was well advised. He ran a good race. He raised a bunch of money. He did all the right things. He worked really, really hard. You can't fault him for anything that he did during the pendency of the race. But candidly, he just ran into a buzzsaw. Michael Guest is a very, very popular elected official in an area of the district where all the votes are. And that and the Phil Bryant endorsement of Michael Guest, there wasn't much of a plausible path for Witt to get over in the runoff, and it was a 30-point victory. When the Rankin County returns came in and Guest was still running 4 votes to 1 over Hughes, that was the end of the night. So. But Hughes, to his credit, was magnanimous. He was supportive. He did not burn the house down. We've seen Republican primaries certainly in the past where the unsuccessful candidate refused to endorse and kind of burn the house down and that sort of thing. And Hughes didn't do that. I think Hughes acquitted himself very well. I think he left himself some opportunities in the future to have other opportunities, whatever that might be. But I think he ran a good race, and I think Republicans will pretty easily come together, hold that seat. It will be fun to watch Michael Guest go against Michael Ted Evans. We've talked about that in the past. Neshoba will be a lot of fun.
I can't wait for those speeches.
That will be a lot of fun. But at the end of the day, it's a ruby red district, and Guest is really popular. He'll have a lot of support, a lot of financial support, and I think he'll do really well.
Well, and just watching these two races run side by side over the past couple of months, it's been very interesting to see. Just like we talked about, Sherman outraised Beria, but Beria did a lot of the footwork. And even in this race with Michael Guest and Whit Hughes, I mean, both were out campaigning, both were doing a lot to get those votes in. So it just kind of goes to show you never really know sometimes what's going to be what gets the voters' attention. And in Guest's situation, he's run in this district before. Like you said, he's a very popular candidate. And so while you can't fault Whit for anything that he did, running a great race, it just was one of those things that was almost an unbeatable scenario.
Yeah, I think, like I said, this just kind of the way it worked out. He just, like I said, Whit Hughes just ran into a buzzsaw. But I do think that it's interesting. This was a gut check, I think, for the establishment part of the Democratic Party. This clearly was, if you look at the primary, the June 5th primary, there was not much interest, and votes were kind of scattered all over the place. And the establishment, the Legislative Black Caucus and Benny Thompson and all these forces really kind of stiffened their back to kind of right the ship. Had Sherman won, and this was kind of something that I'd been thinking about over the last few weeks, had Sherman won, it would have been a major defeat for the Democrat Party. I think, particularly for the establishment, because Sherman did not have much connectivity to Mississippi, and he was appealing to a lot of Democratic base. And look, he still got a lot of votes. But I think at the end of the day, I think Barry did what he had to do, and I think a lot of that was just a result of just plain outworking him through kind of those establishment channels, and again, particularly the Benny Thompson endorsement.
Well, needless to say, the next couple of months will be interesting to watch these Democratic and Republican candidates kind of battle it out until November. And then obviously we'll be coming back again to count some votes and see who's going to be headed to Washington.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, Alan, thank you. Sarah Ulmer, Alan Lange with Y'all Politics, just giving you an analysis about the runoff that happened this week. Stay tuned over the next couple of months. We'll continue to cover these elections until November.